And we're live.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ragin with Jonathan Hop, episode 60. And yeah, this is take two. Why? Because the internet is ass sometimes. So while we are getting our intro ready, why don't you guys check out our YouTube channel? Make sure you hit the subscribe button and share it out with your friends. And in the show notes, we've got the link to his campaign and his social media. So follow him everywhere. Just don't peek in his windows because that's weird. We'll be right back after this.
Raging.
Yes, yes, we are Raging with Jonathan Hop, episode 60 of Raging. Here we go. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good. So, Jonathan, we love talking about the creative process. We love talking about the journey that got you here. And I have to say, having spent the last 2 years learning the creative process of comic books, soup to nuts, from writing scripts to trying to get it published and all that fun stuff. It's not an easy thing.
Nope, not at all.
Definitely not an easy thing. What in the world were you thinking? And when did you first think, I'm going to make comic books?
Actually, it was about 10 years ago. The idea for Journey to the Middle Kingdom, I had it a long time ago, way back when I was still a middle school teacher. And I had the idea first, actually, way longer. I took Japanese and Chinese and Korean in college. And so
Hmm.
I was really into like learning other cultures, trying to learn the writing system. And I had, I'm a very wacky, imaginative person, so I always thought to myself like, what if these Chinese characters I'm learning were actually real things you could use in real life, make my life a lot simpler in some cases. So I had that idea, and then about 10 years ago, I sat down and said, "Well, okay, you got this idea. Why don't you just like try to write like a short story with it, just for yourself? No one else needs in the world needs to see this, or to make them suffer. But write a short story, just come up with some characters, just have some fun with it." And I sat down and did it, and it turned into a whole script before I knew it. Because what I would do is I would work on it after like I would teach, and then after I got home from teaching, I would just be like, well, I got like 45 minutes to work with. Why don't I just add a couple paragraphs, add a page, and then
Hmm.
page became 2 pages, 5 pages, a script, and then I'm like, whoa, like I'm holding this, barbed wire, coffee stains, this sort of monstrosity of a script. And I'm like, well, there's an idea here somewhere, I think. Somewhere in the middle, there must be some sort of actual idea another human being would actually understand. So why don't I take some time and just start taking, the machete and go through the jungle and like get everything pared down to something. And then I looked after like about a year of editing and just finally showing it to a friend of mine who's an English major, and making her suffer through it as well. Um, I had like this thing. I'm like, whoa, this is a straight up script. This is like a plot,
Hmm.
characters, and pat myself on the back. And like, now do I take the like I've come this far? Do I take the next step? And that's what I did. I just said, you know what, you've got something. You have no idea if anyone else is going to get what you get. So the only way you're going to know is to try.
Right. So did you start off with prose first, or did you like literally are you a visual thinker where you were kind of thinking in panels and really putting it into script format?
I put it prose first because that's what I'm used to doing. I've been writing since I was like 8.
Hmm.
My mom bought me a word processor when I was a little kid. That was her little gift to me. It played Tetris,
Oh
which but
yes, Tetris is my
that
favorite.
was a thing. Little green blocks like I was doing in the afternoon. But I had a fifth grade teacher who was really good and inspiring me to write because she's like, okay, you're actually like pretty good. So why don't we try to teach you like the basics of like of writing, etc. So my mom got me a word processor because it would make the typing sounds like it would be like a typewriter. So I felt like I was in like those noir films where like I
Uh-huh.
was like in like rain. And I'm just like sitting there typing my story out, and it felt really cool. I love that sound so much.
I do too. Oh my
It's
God, we're
got
such
soul.
geeks.
So like I've been doing it for a while. So I started off with prose, but then I thought to myself like the visual element of this, like the prose loses all visual element to it. And part of this is like part of the gimmick is that they write Chinese characters in the air, and what they write turns into reality. So like it just begs like the vision, like it just like there needs to be a visual aspect to it. But then I wasn't sold on it being a comic book in the beginning. I thought, okay, well we'll just have an illustration. That'll be
Right.
fine. And then I was just I talked to a friend of mine, and the reason being is I had never actually written a comic book script, so I thought to myself, well, there must be some like super arcane magic that I would need to know, like I need a monkey's paw and a rabbit's foot and climb a mountain or something. Like I don't know what to do with that. But then I found out that there's screenplays, and I'm like, okay, it's just learning how to write a different format.
Hmm.
It still follows a lot of the same rules of writing. You know, you still have to have plot and characters and voice and tone. Now there's difference in terms of paneling and what visual storytelling, which is I had to start from scratch learning all of that. But I liked the whole process. I liked one of the coolest things for me was writing like a page and then having working with the artist and having it like real. It was such the first page where I had the script turn into the actual full inked colored page was like the moment where I was like, okay, this, yes, you're right. I have to do this in the comic book form. That looks so cool. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, would you say when you write, are you a visual writer? Like, do you see it?
Yes,
Do you dream about it? Is it in Technicolor?
I'm a visual thinker in general. I think in pictures. I don't think in words.
Hmm.
Even when I'm like speaking to people, I see this. Like for example, if I'm speaking to someone, like I learned a lot. I lived in a lot of foreign countries. I lived in China, lived in Korea, lived in just a bunch of different places. And so I'm used to like visually seeing sentences in my head when I'm talking to someone in another language. So in order to speak, I'll see like literally visually stop in my head like the ideas I'm trying to convey. So my brain naturally goes for sequential like thinking in terms of pictures. Like I'll see the a person, and then so being able to like think of things in perspective, like okay, my thought conveys these people in this particular position, which will convey this thought. And that was pretty natural for me, actually.
Hmm. Yeah. So, talk to us about the writing process then, because you said you started off with prose.
Yes.
But never having gone through, like comic books and stuff like that. I mean, of of course, screenplays. We see the movie scripts sometimes, whether it's and like stage plays and things like that, and try to break it down into those segments and stuff. But not having put together a comic book before, was it difficult for you to kind of find those descriptors that you can convey to an artist to bring your words to life?
Yeah, there's a lot of duds at the beginning. There's a lot of duds, mainly because I had to. I came a little bit like, well, I can write. Yeah, like I can write prose. I've written like short stories,
Yeah, been
books.
writing all my life.
Like what up? I can do this. No,
Mhm.
that's not quite how that works. You're talking about a visual medium, not prose. So there's a bunch of great lessons I learned early on. But first off, number one, what you think you can do in a page is not what you actually can do in a page. Like I'm thinking of it like a cartoon, right?
Oh,
Like
moving pictures.
moving pictures, right? Like so, but then it's like, well, wait a second. Like I'm taking 3 panels to do something I can do in one. Which was that was the biggest hurdle. Was like I'm like, why can't I show all the individual movements? And Mars is like, well, you can. That just wastes space. Like, what if I? And he showed me like, these 3 panels can be condensed into this one thing, and it conveys exactly what you want. I'm like, oh, you're 100% correct. That is exactly what that means. And so paring down my script was a big thing, was because I had to say to myself, okay, like these movements are smaller movements. Because you have such economy of space, you only have so many pages and you only have so much space to convey a piece of art, and you either you don't go full bore detail into every single page because that's exhausting visually for the reader. So you have to be able to so to me it's like, it's still the idea of writing where you're hitting notes, and sometimes you go slow and sometimes you go fast and sometimes you're loud and sometimes you're quiet. It's just expressed differently. And once I kind of like move that is the same paradigm by moving into the visual medium, that's when I started to pick it up. But at the beginning, no, it was a rough process to get to that point. Another idea that really hit me with visual storytelling also was about in prose you have to explain the scene if it's important. You have to explain the way people look. You have to try to find brand new ways of sneaking in, like how a character looks or what they're wearing or the scene in snappy little ways. This is like I drew the person; they know what they look like. Like you don't have what I'm saying, you don't have to say anything. Like they're there. And so, like a lot of the energy to spend trying to find creative ways to do that in prose is just like it's like whatever in a graphical format, which is good though because it helped me focus more on dialogue. A lot of things I did in the first and second iteration of the script was that I would have the characters say things that were patently obvious once they're shown in a visual medium, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I don't have to do that because
Cut it.
audience gets it. Yep, great job, Jonathan. So there's a lot of cutting, and but then it freed me up to be like, okay, since there's the dialogue is freed. Actually, I thought I just changed my mindset about it. I'm free from having to explain the way things look and what they're wearing and where things are situated with respect to each other in prose. I'm free from that. So now if I don't have to spend so much space and time in doing that, why don't I do more about giving my characters voice? How do I make certain that the emotional impression from this character speaking is different from another character speaking, so the reader, as they go through, they're actually feeling like they're immersed into the scene, because that's actually what we want to do in the graphical mediums. I want you to be immersed in the scene. And dialogue is voice through dialogue is one effective way of doing that, which you do in prose, but it's different.
Right. I mean, with dialogue, it's like you are immersed in their conversation, whereas a lot of times in prose, a lot of times, if you don't do it well, it feels like you're being bonked on the head.
Yeah, you're sitting there watching two people you don't care about talk about the weather.
Right. And so trying to find that way to be fully immersed into the story is, merging the art with your words, chopping out a lot of those things. I mean, that must be difficult as a prose writer because for myself, I love prose. I still love prose, but having studied comic books and doing scripts and things like that, which I didn't have a lot of guidance on, I have to say, you guys suck sometimes because everybody does it differently. There's no standardized way. But
no, there is not.
No, there isn't. It's like, okay, yeah, it just depends on how you talk to your artist. And it's just like, that's not helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to talk to him anyway. Like I need a specific way to talk to my artist.
Right. So have you found it difficult to go back to prose now? Because I myself have gone from like prose to comic book scripts, trying to get back into prose, and I'm like, where are my words?
Don't worry, you'll get them back, and I'll cut them for you again.
There you go.
Right? I'm like, where did my words go? It's been a challenge. How have you done prose, or are you like full on comic books now?
See, that's the thing. I'm kind of like you. Like, I haven't actually written any short stories in the past year and a half to 2 years. I've just been working on comic book scripts.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, and I didn't. Not that I planned that. It wasn't what I just thought to myself, like, I'm focused on getting my series. I'm focused on getting this comic book. I'm learning from the first issue, like, what were the lessons from that in terms of dialogue, in terms of effective plot structure, like me and the artist finally getting in sync. And then that's like and like you said, there is no, like, I went to top 10 tips on how to write a comic book strip. Number 11 will shock you. Like I read through all of them, and they're mostly nothing. Like
nothing.
meaningless. It's just like, when you talk to your artist, be sure you're communicating clearly. Like, what? Like, I'm supposed to like.
What does that mean? Like, if I'm not an artist and I don't think visually, like, how am I supposed to talk to them and convey these ideas? Like, that's not helpful.
Exactly, because it's just like, I don't draw. I can't draw. I really wish it's one of those things in life I wish I could do, but I can't. I can draw like very basic stick figures. I used to do that in school, like a little flip book and have the stick figures sword fight. That's about the best I can do. Okay, so telling me like, perspective or like how much, especially how much you can fit in one panel, that was the biggest hurdle. It's just like, I was just like, this is like 6 like figures in one panel. You might want to pare that down so people can figure out what they're. And then he showed me. I'm like, oh, you are 100% correct, sir. It was. See, with me though, during the Middle Kingdom, I was really lucky. I spent a lot of time trying to find an artist to work with. I did not just go with the first person that was, that raised their hand. I actually talked to about 6 people. And what I did was I did a very simple test. I wrote down in prose a sort of psychological profile of my 3 main characters. Like, this is the kind of person they are. And I gave them like a rough sketch of what they look like. I said, draw them for me. That was the test. That was it. Just, can you read what I'm saying, look at example, and capture it for me? And 2 of them were able to. And so one of them, she wasn't available, and the other guy said, yeah, this looks like a great project. And so what I want to do is I want someone that got me on the gut level. I think that like that's a little bit like that's what the thing that Aaron doesn't tell you is that like, you have to have someone that on some level understands what you're trying to do, so that there is part of the communication needs to be like finished from the beginning. Like, this is what my story is, and this is where it's going. This is what I want to do. If the artist does not get that, it doesn't matter how many tips or tricks you use after that point, nothing's going to work. So that's what I found out. So once I found someone that like drew the 3 characters, I'm like, that's them. Like, that is literally like, they were real people. That is them. Once I saw that, I'm like, okay, you instinctively get me and what I'm trying to do, and any other little things that happen afterward will just iron out.
Yeah. What was it like paying for your first piece of art?
Okay, so like I'm very big on you get paid for your work. So when I said that I had like 6 people do these things, I made sure they were all paid. And so the first one was horrible.
Oh no.
I'm sorry, it was really bad. The guy tried. He made my main character Jason. He made it like this big like G.I. Joe machine gun with like one-handed machine gun Arnold Schwarzenegger type. And I was just like,
no.
I mean, if I were doing that style, like, I kept his name because if I ever do that style of comic book, I am going straight to him. It's like,
right.
It's like Commando, Charlie in the Jungle. Like, that's fantastic for that genre.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just like, I paid for it. I looked at it. I'm like, but I told myself again, we're trying to find the one here. So that's fine. So I actually got the new artist, Demas, the one who's currently working on the project with me. Demas gave me his first page. I fell in love with it. And I actually feel there is such, I think the reason I don't even do prose as much as I used to, there's that ridiculously like giddy feeling you get when like you write a script, he does it. It actually looks even better than what you imagined. Like,
yes.
He saw aspects of the character or the situation you didn't, put that in there, and then you're like, whoa, man. Like, that's awesome. And I'm like, I'm a genius script writer, but actually the artist did it for me. But I'm a genius script writer.
I know they need love. They need all the love for doing that. I have to tell you, the first time that I paid for, I was able to afford like the first 8 pages of a script, right? And I just remember my husband and I were talking, and I'm like, it's going to cost this much money to put our comic book together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's an investment. I'm like, do we have it? Is this something that we really should pursue? And I was sick. I mean, because I went through the process of finding the artist. I kind of went through DeviantArt. I don't know if you did that, to find some of your artists. But
initially, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the first time I was like cutting a check to sending PayPal, it was just like,
this is it, right?
Like, yeah, I'm like, this is it. I'm like diving in, and
like,
like,
once
oh my
your foot's
God.
in the air, it's it. You gotta.
Yeah, it's like that commitment. I'm like, am I ready for this? I don't know. But yeah, I've been really super happy. Fell in love with it. And of course, I didn't read my script with the art that I got back because I was just so in love with the art that I was just like, oh crap. Okay, now I got to fix the dialogue because it doesn't fit.
And that happens all the time. Like, wow, that makes no sense to say now, does it?
Like, I love what you did. Now I've got to change my script. Damn it.
But you know what? Like that lets you know though that your final product's gonna be good because you're really taking the medium into consideration. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like you when you see it, because that's exact thing happened to me. Like it's a bit better now of an issue 2, but issue 1, there'd be things like, wow, that makes 0 sense for him to say at this point. Like, why would you say that to another human being? Like then I had to go like right back. But now what I do is because so Demas does the artwork and Novella does the lettering. So there's a little bit of pause. So I can be like, I can look at Demas's work back and be like, okay, I take the dialogue I wrote and I go over it again. Like, does it make sense given what's going on? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and then Novella gets it. That's the way we work that out, like that. Because getting all back at once, I was just like, oh, good job.
I have to ask you, Jonathan, have you thought about maybe trying to letter a page or two just to get that experience?
I would absolutely love to if my like the time aspect also started. So I do this. I work 2 jobs. I work a full-time job and I also work a part-time job. This is my 3rd part-time job. So it's just like
Mhm.
so many hours in a day. I've been looking at lettering though because that's the part I feel I could do. And even then, it had way more intricacy than I thought it did. I was just
Oh,
like,
yes.
pop a speech bubble and put some like Helvetica font, and there you go. Like what do you what are we even doing here? And I'm like, oh no, there's like space requirements. There's like
Tails.
considerations.
Tails are hell.
Yeah, like there's tails. There's like I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm like, didn't you learn your lesson with the artist? Like it's like you
Right.
knew
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult. Yeah, because of budget. Again, it was like one of those things that I experienced for myself, and it's like one of those love hate relationships. But I highly recommend that you try, only because you get a new appreciation for the art of lettering
yeah, it's
and the
art.
jobs
That's
that you
the
are
correct
willing
word.
to and not willing to do.
No, God bless Novella. God bless Novella. Like she does a bang up job. I'm glad she's doing it because once I tried lettering a page myself and I was like, this is sad.
What is the hardest thing for you in your comic journey? What has been the hardest thing for you?
Ooh, so the creative process in and of itself, I love. I'm a very creative person. I wrote books on Go before I even started doing this, so like that part was okay. Um, for me, I am not the kind of person that like markets themselves or promotes themselves or like the elevator pitch. Like my first elevator pitch was terrible, and it's
Mm.
like I'm starting to learn that like like even if you get the comic book together, you go through the whole journey with the artist and the letterer, and you go through all the script writing and everything. It's like cool, you got it done. Now you gotta have the world like want to feel that your story is important or understand what it is you're trying to do, and that is super super difficult. It was way more difficult than I thought it was going to be. It's also an ongoing process and never is quite done. Like the comic book, you can say like, okay, here's issue 1.
Mhm.
We've gone to Mordor. We dropped the ring into the fiery cave. We've got issue 1. Great. It's like now you've got to distill your idea into something other people can relate to. You have to come to grips with the fact that everyone's not going to like your idea. It's not for everybody, but it's for some people. But you got to find them. They're there, but you got to find them, and you got to learn how to like communicate very clearly to people who have no idea, have no background in what you're saying. And so I use some of my teaching skills for that because that's basically some of those skills with what you do when you teach a classroom. But on the other hand, it's it's a good challenge. I feel I've grown. I'm a typically introverted, shy person. I had to get over that. Like you have to go out and network, talk to other creators. Like I learned. I went to my first comic book expo like 2 weeks ago, Great Lakes Comic Book Expo in Macomb, Michigan. First time I've ever. I mean, I've been visited one as a person like geek out over comics, but never actually had like a table. And I was like, oh my God, I have a table. I invested in a table. What am I going to do? I mean, there's three people. I'm like freaking out on the day of because I'm super excited, but I have absolutely no idea which is kind of irrational because I've been to one before. Like, obviously, you know what goes on there because you've been to one. But I got my setup and everything going. And then the guy across from me, his name's Tom Savage. He had the most professional, like pristine looking table I had ever seen in my life. He had like tablecloth and the studio. And he had a pop up thing and the da 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 da. And I'm like,
and you're like, ah.
I'm sitting over here with I didn't even bring tablecloth. I had no idea that that's what you were supposed to bring because, like, I don't know. And so I have like a brown table. I've got like my stuff, my little stenographer's pad for like sign up for my newsletter, please. I'm across from like this guy who looks like he's like from, I don't know, some like major publishing company. And then we talked for a while and he did it all himself. He's indie. He does not look indie. I thought he was just some dude the publishing company sent to like, sell the books. But what was great is that getting out of my shyness a bit, we talked, he's like, you can do this. You need to have tablecloth. You need to have your books facing forward. You need to, here's where you can go to get this tablecloth done. Da, 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 da. I didn't know any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so by reaching out, like I learned just so, and it wasn't, I thought he'd be like, Garlic, these are our secrets.
Right.
These are the comic books. We will never share them with you. No, he's just like, yeah, just do this, this, and this. You're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, the comics industry, indie comics, for the most part, I've seen a lot of people who do that whole pay it forward, like these are the ways if you want to sell your books, because they know how hard it is to get out there and, hawk your things, presentation, all of that stuff, so that's kind of cool that you were able to bend his ear.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't even like push. It was just like he just walked over. He said, like, the reason he says like your book looks good. He's like, it's like the actual finished product looks great. I just want to help you with the presentation aspect of it because you gotta have these sorts of things. And I'm a lifelong learner. I was brought up with that. You don't know everything, and then if someone comes forward and knows more than you do, you should probably listen and see what you can learn. Like put your put the ego to the side a bit. And so, like, I was, he went through it, and I'm just sort of like, these little, like, I didn't, because each expo is a bit different, the crowd that comes. I'm like, comic books are comic books. Yeah, man. Like, but no, like, not really. That's not how that works. Some people go for specific genres or specific things. Some people go more for the anime or the manga. Some people go for the more classic comics. There's all these genres in there. And I was just like, jaw dropped, like the level of complexity.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated. And sometimes, you have a whole day where everybody coming in is looking for like, where are the swords? Right, like, they're like, forget art and forget the books. Like, where are the swords? Where's all the other swag and stuff? It's yeah. And then you're going like, wow, I spent money at this place.
Yeah, exactly. Like it wasn't that bad because the table. I went to a small expo, so the table was pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the places, their tables were like, like, yeah, you could have your own like 6-foot cardboard cutout for $3,000. I'm like, no, thank you. I'll pass. Maybe next year. So this was like
before we take our break, I wanted to ask you. So when you decided, you're like, I'm going to make this comic book. I'm going to make this come to life. What was the reaction of family and friends when you made that decision?
Super, super, super supportive. Super supportive. That's kind of and I know that's not the truth for everybody. That's kind of been my saving grace is that I know that there's a group of people that have heard because I have the whole like story arc like done, and I went through with a couple of friends who bothered to listen, and they're like, "That is freaking cool. You need to do this," and they're pushing me, like, "You need the entirety of the story done because that's really freaking cool." And I'm like, "Great." And other people have just been generally just not fanatic, but just sort of like, that's great, man. Like, that's awesome. You could go for it. And so like one friend helped me pass out flyers. I didn't ask him to. And he just went to like this comic convention, had flyers. Another friend of mine like was, talking up the people at her school. Like you'd be surprised the way people react, especially if they feel you're doing something. Everyone likes to back someone who's like trying to, do something special. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone does the thing, but like trying to like do a book or do a comic book is out the norm for most people. So if you do, it kind of feels special to a lot of people. They want to support it.
I want friends like yours.
I preface it with like, I know this has not been the case.
It's not. That's not normal. My friends are, the ones that I grew up with, they're like, they're the ones pulling your hair out of the toilet, when you had a bad night or something like that, and they're like, oh, you're doing what?
What'd you say?
Yeah. And how are you going to pay the bills with that? It's like, I'm not.
That's not the point.
It's the money pit, man. It's the money pit. Why are you doing it then? Why are you doing it, Jonathan? Why are you doing this thing?
See, that's the thing. No one ever asked. Like, they just basically were like, "Cool, that's what you're doing." Often, I do lots of creative stuff anyway, so it's just like, what is his latest creative thing he's doing? You know what I'm saying? Like by now, if you're a friend, you know me for like more than 15 minutes. You know that I'm like a pretty like I like to do writing, I like to do stories, I like to do videos, like to do all these things. So it's like, oh, this is his latest project, basically. That was basically the reaction. Like, oh, this is the thing you're doing now. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe had one person who very politely said that maybe I shouldn't quit my day job, but very like. Well, it wasn't. It was more meant like in sort of like like this is great and all, but like you got a job which you need to like really focus on. I'm just sort of like I can walk and chew gum. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one person.
Yeah.
It's always gonna be that person, but just ignore them.
Yeah, that's right. Because I mean, the give us why you write.
So I have an extremely active inner world. So I am always not here. I don't know how else to explain that. Like even when I was a little kid, like the real world is like taking out the trash and it's got the laws of physics and it's got all the colors and like once you've seen it, you've seen them all. So I prefer a world with dragons in it. I prefer a world with talking brooms. I prefer a world where you can fly. That's all much more spicier than what you normally get during your day to day. And so my mind, even since I was a kid, was always been like, well, what if, you could do X? Or what if I went over here? Like I used to do superhero comics when I was a kid. I thought like the X-Men are cool. What if I had my own X-Men? And then I would think about like what powers they would have. So like that, I have a like, you can think of it like this ball of creative energy inside me. It has to come out. Like, it cannot just sit there and go to the office, the gray office in 9 to 5 and just like sit there and like type my thing and then go to work with my briefcase. It has to come out. And I find that I feel very like natural doing what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm creating. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. Like it's perfectly natural for me to sit down and to write prose about like I wrote a short story about people where subtitles will appear underneath where they're speaking and what like things like that, or like reviews of pop culture, things like that. My mind is very active, so it has to be doing things, and I feel correct, feel at ease. I feel like I'm myself when I'm doing those things, and when I'm not, I feel like I'm trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel
it's got to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere. So I feel, what I'm saying, I wanted to go towards something positive. So I want to do things that help, what I'm saying, that help other people, help with their lives, help them learn something, get some enjoyment, have a laugh, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's super important to me.
Well, we blew past our 30-minute mark. We're going to take a quick break here for everybody who is tuning in. Thank you. Sean Washington is in the house. Nita Landings, internet. She's got stormy weather. She'll be back if she can. We are Raging with Jonathan Hopp, episode 60, and he has got Journey to the Middle Kingdom. An evil queen rules with an iron fist. We're going to take a quick break and give a little love to our brothers over there at Catch the Craze. They've got a wonderful podcast. You have to get over there and give them a subscribe and tune into their shows. We'll be right back after this.
It's Monty Moore. I'm a 30-year comics veteran in comics, games, and movies, and you've been watching one of my absolute favorite podcasts, Catch the Craze.
You are watching Catch the Craze. What am I listening to?
And you're listening to Catch the Craze.
Where all the indies at?
A Catch the Craze podcast. What are you watching?
I'm watching Catch the Craze.
What are you going to do?
Subscribe now to Catch the Craze, the #1 show online for independent.
Have you subscribed to?
You are an independent. Catch the craze. Making moves on your own. Catch the craze. On your grind in the streets. Catch the craze. Join the movement. Catch the craze.
This is not Catch the Craze. This is RAGIN, but we love those guys over there. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share that out with your friends. Tune in. And Jonathan, that might be a show that you should get your butt on because they're a lot of fun. And we're back.
They sound like it.
Yeah, they love comics. Sam and George, they've been doing it for years and years, and they've got their own campaigns coming up too. So, yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of energy, and we love cross promoting each other. So we are back with Jonathan Hump, and we're going to talk about your campaign now. This is book 2 that's
Correct.
on Kickstarter right now. When did the idea of this story first come to you? You said something about it being like about 10 years ago. It started off in prose. But when did it really start? When did you start thinking about this whole story arc and what these 3 teenagers do?
So I did a Kickstarter 10 years ago. I had the script and everything written. I had a story arc. I actually have 3 story arcs. That are the first one I know what that's like the plan, everything. And I tried the Kickstarter, but that like I didn't know what I was doing. Like, let's be real with each other. I had no idea. I thought like Kickstarter, that was the early days of Kickstarter. That was like the glitzy, like someone put this on Kickstarter and it got like 1 million hits. I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds awesome. And then I tried and did not get 1 million hits. But that was fine because I learned a lot from the whole experience. I put it down for about 8 years. I got really, it hit hard. I was like, well, maybe this is a stupid idea. Maybe no one will like this. Maybe the reason that it wasn't popular is because people looked at it like, eh. And so I went on with my life for a little while, and I got older, and I was like, well, wait a sec. I sat down with myself and said, like, do you want to get older, have this idea, and you never got to see it in print? Like, can you actually legitimately say you can live with that? That's an okay thing. You'll be 60 and be like, yeah, I had this idea 40 years ago, whatever. I'm like, no. I don't care if the whole world thinks it's the most ridiculous thing ever. I would like to see this in print. And so I sat down, got my first script, said, what the hell was I thinking? Like, oh my God, no. And then completely rewrote it, and then edited, rewrote it, went through the whole editing tornado, got something together and said, you know what? Like I said, come hell or high water, you want a larger story and it's larger theme. Great. If they don't, great. You're never going to win if you don't try. That's when I said, okay, I'm going to take a script, I'm going to find an artist, and we're just going to do this.
Mm-hmm. And so when you were putting this together, all right, so you did book 1, you've got book 2 out now. I'm assuming that there's maybe 3, 4. Like, how far ahead are you looking at creating this world?
So okay, so let's take a step back. I kind of want to paint a picture for you. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's first talk about the name Journey to the Middle Kingdom, because most people don't know what I mean by Middle Kingdom. It sounds kind of like Tolkien or whatever. Middle Kingdom actually refers to China. If you were to write out the country China in Chinese, it's Zhongguo. Zhong is middle, Guo is country or kingdom. So literally, in like the word for China in Chinese is Middle Kingdom. So that's where I actually get the title of the series from. I used to teach Chinese. I lived in China for 2 years. I taught Chinese immersion in elementary school. Education is a big part of my life. I wanted something to where I could, in a very fun way, teach about the Chinese language in accessible but not super academic means of doing it, so it'd be interesting. But I also think it's really important that people outside of China start to understand Chinese culture a bit more on a fun level. So for example, I took Chinese in college. I went there, and then I found out that there were all these stories I had never heard of. Like, how did I go through my whole life? I knew, like, Grimm's fairy tales, North Odin and Thor, Anubis, Egyptian, Greek mythology. I had no idea about Legend of the White Snake Maiden, and that's like a super famous story that's like 800 years old.
Exactly. They've got stories like thousands and thousands of years old, like documented.
Right, like no joke. Like I told people like Legend of the White Snake Maiden was like at least they actually don't know how old it is. It's that old. They think it's at least 800. And they're like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, it's been around for a while, and I went through a good chunk of my life. Nothing, had no idea it existed, and I'm thinking to myself like, and then I did as I was learning more Chinese. I actually have the book here with me. I used to read this book. It's a book of Chinese fairy tales.
Oh, very cool. Let me put you on the big screen here.
There you go. So this is China right here, and this means basically like children's stories.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and then this is a book. There's 12 of them. There's one for each month. So if you look on the, this is for October. And the idea of these books is that the parents sit down with their kid, one book a month, and they read a story and helps them like learn about the culture, learn how to read and write and that sort of thing. And so I started reading these. I'm like, oh my God, there's like these like stories and stuff that like I'm sure no one else has ever heard of. So I wanted to make a series where the heroes go from story to story in each issue. So, I start off with the main story, which is the main story arc, which will be about 12 to 14 issues. Which is Legend of the White Snake Maiden. And then they're going to dip in and out. So the first part of Legend of the White Snake Maiden, and then issue number 2, number 3, they're going to do what's called the Princess of Yelan. So that's like the first story that they're supposed to take part in. The idea is that they've been sent back in time to China. So Jason, Michelle, and Sabrina are the main characters. They've been sent back in time to ancient China, and the past has been corrupted. They have to go to each of these stories and ensure that they end as they're supposed to. So in the first issue, they get sent back in time. In the second issue, they have to participate in the story of the Princess of Yelan and try to figure out how they can ensure that the past occurs as it should. Then each episode, each issue is going to go from like I have another one you can see the back, Jochu Leme's Street Evil, the guy with the tiger. That's going to be issue 4. And I've got issues 12 through 14 planned for the first story arc. I've got 6 issues for the second story arc, which is War of the Three Kingdoms. And there's a third story arc, which is going to be the big finale, which is going to have a big twist in it. So when I say I have things planned, I read exactly what I have the whole thing planned out. Like I know exactly what story I'm doing for each issue, and I'm pretty sure how many issues there's going to be.
Being that you've kind of done that, you've outlined it in a way that it doesn't feel so big. Have you ever kind of stood back and went, "Wow, that's so big"?
Yes. That's exactly like even when I just said it, I was like, yeah,
oh my God,
the 14 issues in the first like wow.
Yeah, it's like smooth suave, and then you're like, oh my God.
I'm just like I'm so casual about it too. I'm just like, yeah, just 12 issues. Let's write them like in the afternoon or whatever.
I know you make it look so easy, but so when it comes to putting these ideas together, what do you outline things? Do you have different notebooks for different ideas? Do you have a wall of sticky notes? How do you organize your thoughts to even think about 12 to 14 issues?
So when I was taught writing when I was a kid, Miss Elliott, my 5th grade teacher, she was big on outlining. And I still to this day, I think it was just ingrained in me. I do extremely like outlines. I'm like, for issue number 2, I was like, okay, it's got to have, I got to be the structure. I got to know where the beginning, the climax, the denouement, and then the resolution are going to be. Okay, start with that basic story structure. Then let's fill that in. Another thing I've done recently is I will do the main structure of the story. So you can think of the first outline as chronological. A happens before B, B happens before C, C happens before D, and this is the thing because it's sequential. You have to tell a story one after the other. But I have another file I keep called character notes because I'm really big into characterization. My goal is we meet the character on page whatever of the first issue. We leave the character on page whatever of the last issue. What's different? What can I say is different? If they're not different, then you haven't really done any sort of character journey, or the events of your story have not impacted the character to where they change, which is a big red flag. So I asked myself, okay, Jason, Michelle, and Sabrina, we meet them in issue number 1. They're doing Michelle's an artist, Jason's a jock, and Sabrina is, class president. Where are they in issue number 14? What have they learned? How are they different? And so in order to keep that together, I have what's called a little character notes that I keep with each issue. What notes? I think of it like a xylophone. So in order for us to get to the end of the musical piece, we have to play all these notes. And some of those are faster and slower, and some of we hit loud and do a crescendo, and some we don't. So I said, in order to get to here, what notes do I have to hit, and how far apart do I have to hit them in order for the reader to actually believe that the character changed in the way that I want them to? So I have to go make sure that when I do dialogue and script that I'm not missing character notes, because that's really easy to do. It's really easy to get caught up in the logical process of the story to say that A happens to B and then forget, oh, wait a second. Conflict in issue 6, it has seeds in issue number 2 and 3 now, or it's not believable. It'll just be like they explode out of nowhere in issue 6. There's got to be some hint to the reader, some idea that this is that a little foreshadow, or maybe how do I want to do it, but there has to be some groundwork laid out early on. And so I have an outline in terms of the chronological story. I have an outline in terms of character development, what notes they have to hit, so that I can keep them as I'm writing the issue. I can refer back to it, say, okay, am I on the overall arc? And those are the two things I've really been focusing on. And then just the third thing would be, because again, this is partly I am doing this partly educationally. I am trying to teach about language and culture and things. So I had to make certain, like, okay, what lessons am I teaching the lay person about the Chinese language or China? And then how far apart do I do? Then how do I tie in the stories? It's like my third outline. So I have like 3 outlines that deal with like different things, if that makes any sense. And then I sort of like jump between them, which can get confusing sometimes.
I love the character development that you have, because talking about the like being able to write down what the character, how they began and how they should finish, and not, if you don't see any character development, you're doing something wrong. Because one of the things that I've done in storytelling a lot of times is, like, I know the beginning, I know the end, but it's like sometimes like that middle becomes really mushy, right? And so the trick for me has often been, to go to the end. It's like, well, what was the thing that got them there, and then write that and work my way backwards. And
yeah, exactly.
And that's really helped, because then you can also see, like taking a step back, and then seeing how it how it ends. It's like, okay, how did I get there? Take a step back, how did I get there? And it's really interesting. It sounds kind of similar to what you're doing, but a little bit different. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's the thing is you gotta be a bit flexible, because sometimes you like, I know how this ends, and then your characters don't do what you want them to do. And that
I hate when they go rogue a lot.
They're just like, no, I don't actually, like, that's not something I would do. Sorry, like, I don't know who you're talking to. It's not me.
Try again. They do have voices, you guys, and they're real.
And I'm just like, no, you do what I tell you to do. You are a fictional character.
No, it doesn't work that way. I often joke that it's like, people say, yeah, you're the writer. I'm like, no, it's actually the muse. I'm just the vehicle that it's words.
Yeah, I'm channeling them.
Yes, exactly. Like, otherwise I might be a serial killer. I don't know.
Who knows? But I don't know where I am today. So
I don't have time for jail, you guys. So we've got here an evil queen rules with an iron fist. A young princess's bright future has turned into a nightmare. Journey to the Middle Kingdom, issue 2, The Princess of Yilang. Now, is this do you have catch up tiers so that they can get the first story and get caught up?
Oh yeah. So basically I have physical and electronic tiers. You can get issue number 2, or you can get issue number 1 and 2 combined. Mm-hmm. And then I also have a mega pack. So if in case you miss all the swag from the first issue, you can get like the full pack, like all the stickers, the trading cards, the posters from both issues. So that way you get everything. Or if you already got issue 1, then you can just get issue 2. It's fine. So I wanted to be inclusive, because some people were around for the first campaign, and some people just caught wind of the second campaign. They want to go back and get the first one. So yeah, it's pretty easy to accommodate.
And I really do love this art.
Demas is just amazing. His
And
it's simplistic, like the backgrounds specifically, but that's the part I love about it. Is just sort of like he has a real good. For me personally, I think his knack is understanding how to declutter a scene so that you only care about the things that are actually mattering at a given point. I think there is for one artist I work with, he was very good. Not saying it was anything technically wrong. It was his pages were too busy for my taste. There's too much going on, and it detracted from like this is the message of what I'm trying to get across in this panel. And so like because people read things different ways with Demas, it's like it's pretty, it's 100% visually appealing, but like for this scene, like it is about the king and his daughter and passing on rulership of Yelang onto his daughter and talking about the future and her and what his aspirations for her and the kingdom. That's the main point. And so we can do like an ink painting of like a Chinese ink painting in the background, which would look pretty, but would detract from it, I think.
Yeah. So it is something that is visually appealing. Love the idea of the storyline and bringing some of the Chinese fable to life through your eyes and through your words. It's very cool.
Like I said, a lot of these stories, I started studying this, and I just, like I said, I realized I just had this realization of like, why don't this story is read by literally millions of people. It's not an exaggeration. Millions of Chinese people know the Legend of the White Snake Painting. Now, the Princess of Yelang is more local. It's a province called Guizhou, which is in southern China. I actually was able to visit there. And China is a huge country. It's varied. It's got a lot of individual places, and so each individual area will have some of its own folklore and fairy tales, which also I thought was really interesting. So the first issue, I went with the big, one of the top 4 Chinese fairy tales, like Legend of the White Snake. But then for issue 2 and 3, I said I want to do something more local, something that be good. Like it's a great story, but like I want to take it from that provincial to something a bit more global.
And we do have a question here from Sean Washington. Let's put that up on the screen. Jonathan, through traditional manga is Japanese. Have you ever dreamed of creating one in Chinese or English?
I tried in high school. I took Japanese in high school. And for one of my products, I tried to create a manga, even though my Japanese was very broken at the time. And it was really not great. The artwork was I did it myself, and it was me. I was a teenager. I watched Dragon Ball Z. I watched like a lot of like different things, and I basically took anime tropes from Slayers and Inuyasha and put them all into one thing. It was a Frankenstein, but it was fun to do.
Well, now the one thing that I wanted to point to was this particular panel, this first one here on this page, and it says "fly" in English, and we see the characters here. I'm guessing that actually translates into "fly."
Correct. So the way Chinese works, and this is very different from any sort of language that has an alphabet, is instead of having letters that combine into words, you have a symbol that stands for a concept. And so that character right there with all those lines, that one symbol, it stands for the concept of flight. So and that's what's kind of cool about it, because then I thought to myself, like, that's like the power of these characters is that they contain meaning rather than pronunciation.
And I really love that, because there would be no mistaking like to fly as opposed to house fly.
Yeah. Right, but that's the idea. Actually, I tell people one of the point of Chinese characters is that you want to be able to differentiate words that sound the same. So you basically just say, okay, this character stands for bear in the forest. This one's bear, like your cupboards are bare, like just to use an English homophone, but
right,
like if they were the same, so we just use different spellings. They use different symbols to make sure that they're clear. The other cool thing that people sometimes miss is that Chinese characters are legible to Japanese people. They're legible to Koreans who are educated in that. They're legible to Vietnamese who are educated in Chinese characters. 1,000 years ago, pretty much in Asia, that's what people used was Chinese characters. It wasn't until that they switched over in some other countries. But in the ancient past, you wrote Chinese characters, and then that meant that the Chinese emperor could write a letter, send it all the way to the minister for the left in Japan, and if you were trained in classical Chinese, you could read it despite the fact you didn't speak the same language.
Right. Very interesting. And I love that you've incorporated that because it's again, it's a learning opportunity without being bonked on the head.
Right, exactly.
You
Like
know,
it's fun, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not like, okay, here's how we write it, because you know the way I did education, it was that no one's going to really learn anything if they don't give it, they don't care about it.
Yeah.
So get them to care about it first. Make it fun, make it interesting, right? Like if you're a kid and like you have an imagination, yeah, just draw the character fly, and then you can do what you want to do with it, right? And so that's also flexibility of their powers, is that it's part interpretation too. Like I cover that in the book. It's partly how you interpret what it means. So if you want to draw a character and then everyone flies, then that's what you can do. And so it's that aspect. And so after that, if someone's interested in learning more, then that's great. And then we can get them started to learn how to write, or maybe learn about Chinese culture or whatever else. But you're not going to get that first step if you're just bonking them on the head with learning.
Exactly. Yeah, making it fun is really the way to go, because then it's almost like they're accidentally learning, and they don't realize it's like, oh, I'm using my brain, but I'm having fun. How is this possible?
Make it stop.
I know. Oh, but yeah, so we're looking at some of the interior pages, you guys. I mean, definitely head over there. We have the Kickstarter link. We have Jonathan's links to his social media as well. And this looks like a lot of fun. Something that is for all ages from the looks of it.
Yep. It's do want to note that it is physically done, so I'm actually holding a proof copy of issue number 2 in my hand. So it is.
Oh, very good. Well, here, let me get you up on the big screen here. Show that off.
Here we go. And so, I mean, everything's done. Artwork, lettering. The printer. I live 20 minutes away from the printer. Everything's done. So this is not a concept. It's something I want to I've gotten to fruition. So that is important. I think for a lot of people in Kickstarter, it's important to know that the project is either close to finished or finished. Then we're at that stage. Like we're ready to go.
Definitely. I mean, again, the artwork looks great. The storyline, the fact that there's those elements of learning without whacking us upside the head and just saying you shall learn, and something that can be shared with everybody in the family.
I'll tell you one thing. My mother's friend, she has a lot of grandchildren. She has 6 grandchildren, and this is one of the things that actually got one of her grandchildren to read. Like one of her grandchildren hates reading, just does not want to be bothered with it. Couldn't be but she saw Legend of the White Snake, and she saw the cover. She's like, "What's that, Grandma?" Like,
oh wow,
what's going? And then she carried it with her to church. She was reading it in the car. She wants her hands on issue number 2. So it's great for what I've seen so far. Is it's great for family to share with their children. Like read it with your child because it's made for both parties to learn something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's some of the extras that you've got. You've got some bookmarks, stickers from the looks of it, a print here.
Yeah, that was all the swag from issue number 1. So, like I said, everything from issue number 1, the first Kickstarter campaign, is still available if you want to, catch up.
Mm-hmm. Kind of going through the stretch goals here and things. I mean, yeah. I mean, this looks like a lot of fun. This looks like something that I would probably want to get and have in the archives for my granddaughter, when she gets a little bit older and wants to read. So grandma's got you covered there, little one. Grandma's got you covered. And so as we close up here with our hour, again, this is An Evil Queen Rules with an Iron Fist. It's Journey to the Middle Kingdom, issue 2. You can catch up, caught up with issue 1 there as well. We've got the social media links for Jonathan, so you can follow him on his comics journey. And Jonathan, so we usually have one more question before we let anybody go, and that is, if you were to give advice to anyone new coming into the world of comic books as a comic creator, what would be like the best piece of advice you could give them?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm gonna give one piece of simple advice and one piece of a little bit longer.
Sure.
First piece is just do it. Stop and just do it. put like whatever that is, whether you're a writer or an artist or a letterer, right? There is something in there for you. I thought, for example, I almost talked myself out of doing things I couldn't draw. Like how am I gonna be able to afford an artist, whatever else? Just do it. Start with your script. Start drawing a character. Start learning more about lettering. Whatever it is you like, wherever it is you fit. Put the pen to paper, and start doing is what you need to. Will keep you going is what I call like the success feedback loop. Is that feeling of getting your script page done, and then that feels awesome, and then you have your script turned to art, that feels awesome, then you have a letter that feels awesome, and then your characters do what you want them to do. Positive treadmill of creation, and that's where you want to be, but you have to get on the treadmill first and trust that's what's going to start happening, and then once you start having those successes, you'll keep going.
Mm-hmm. Love it. I bet you're like the coolest teacher out there.
I've since left the teaching profession, which is a whole other story. When I was a teacher, I was pretty well liked. Like I said, teaching to me is not just about the facts and information. I wanted to help them with their lives, and just whatever wisdom or thoughts I had that could help impart that.
Well, even in this book, you're not done teaching. So
yeah, basically.
All I can say is keep paying it forward. And we really appreciate you for being here on an hour with RAGIN with. And again, we appreciate everybody who's tuned in on the live stream and on the replay. This is episode 60. And we're RAGIN with Jonathan Hopp. Make sure that you share it out and take a look at his campaign. Share that out as well. If you've backed it, thank you. If not, hit the share button. Hit the button. It's what we do here. And again, paying it forward. Jonathan, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And don't go anywhere. We just have a little outro. That's right. It's over. It's over. Get out of here, you guys. Go create something. We'll talk to you soon. Jonathan, do me a favor.
Sure.
Say, throw my dudes.
Throw my dudes.
We're out of here, you guys. Hey there, this is Meredith Loughran with RAGIN, and I wanted to let you know that we encourage and promote independent creators and their projects through organic interaction, consultations, and more. Visit Nita and me at RAGINAVC.com for details and contact information. Hit the button.